Uncuckables.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Uncuckables for another Thursday evening. I'm Tim Wilms, Editor and Chief of The Unshackled, and down below me, as always, is David Hiscox, Editor of the XYZ.
Hello Tim, a pleasure to be here.
And we've got making his Uncuckable debut, so we'll see how uncuckable he is from the semi-autonomous region of Western Australia, self-confessed climate denier, Stephen Wells. Welcome to the show.
Good to be here.
And I am aware that people were waiting in the chat because we've started 4 minutes past 8:30 Melbourne time. It was Dave's fault, but not because he was late. He just got a consumed with the pre-chat with Stephen, and I had to basically drag him and saying, "Hey, we've actually got this show that's starting now."
Yeah, you censored us, Tim.
Hey, you're on air now. You can continue if you want.
I know. I think we've got an agenda to follow here.
We are also on Entropy, as well as on. You can access it through the YouTube live chat, and we're also on DLive as well. I think that I've got it up and working because our DLive audience is growing. Yes. Now, I had you on my Wilmsfront program end of last year about your book, Confessions of a Climate Denier, which you could buy through Amazon. And you've got a new book out, which, well, I'll allow you to go through the publishing process.
Yeah, I'm glad I'm allowed to talk. I was just sorry I didn't dare speak earlier because I know I was actually the one responsible for you being late because I was the one chatting away. So I'm allowed to talk again. That's good. I'm just so scared of being censored again.
Tim doesn't trust me to keep my mouth shut when the intro's running. He thinks I'll sing along or something like that. Maybe
I do sense your crap.
Please continue, Stephen.
Yeah, so the first book, which is this one there, that got on Amazon okay, and I thought it wouldn't actually. It's probably because I used the word climate change denier, and they like the word climate change denier because it makes me an evil Nazi. So they allowed that one on, and yeah, it did okay for a self-published nobody, and I was quite happy with the few shekels that I got for it. But then, I lost my job for being politically incorrect due to the coronavirus with a client who wanted me to give them my home address and telephone number when I accidentally walked into a building that I shouldn't have. And so I was without a job, and I thought, well, bugger this coronavirus thing has been pissing me off ever since I first saw the pictures come out of China. And so I decided to basically expose everything, and I wrote this little book here, just a little short thing, 100 pages, The Great Coronavirus Swindle. And I went through the process on Amazon again to upload it and put it all up there. And yeah, after I'd spent the 4 hours going through the crap of doing that, I was supposed to wait 3 days for it to go online, and I told everybody it was up and running, and in 3 days it'll be there, and then I got the first notice back saying that the title was a bit too controversial, and I should probably change it, and they wouldn't want me to do that. I thought, well, what we're going to change the title to? Don't go outside, you're all going to die.
Maybe you could have called it Tales of a Coronavirus Denier.
Yeah,
are you a coronavirus or COVID? I hate how it's now referred to as COVID-19. It's basically I see it disassociated as much as possible from its origins.
Yeah, we prefer to call it the Chinese diversity flu.
Well, the Chinese diversity cold would probably be a better aspect for it. I mean, it's a cold virus, but yeah. I don't know what I could have done. I was just getting over the shock of that, and I was thinking of just putting the word censored over the title coronavirus and shoving it back in their face and seeing if that went through. But then I got a second notification telling me that the content was no good either, and that they were basically only allowing official information about the pandemic whilst this was going on, and so it was denied on that basis. So then I went to Book Baby, which is another fairly big one that my wife used to do her music through CD Baby. And so I thought, right, well, I'll try Book Baby. And then they said, no, we some of our books go through Amazon, and we basically have the same policy. And I went through all of the big ones, and pretty much everywhere on the internet. I just couldn't get it up until I found a little place called PayHip, and they don't actually print books for you. So what I liked about Amazon was that people in the States or the UK or stuff, they could order a copy, and it wouldn't cost them an arm and a leg to get a physical book. They could get one for $20 or whatever, because they had printing operations in different countries. But for me to send them a book, it was $20 through the post, plus the cost of the book, plus the cost of me printing it. So it was all a little bit expensive for me to do myself. Yeah, it's fine if people want to just do digital downloads, but there's still a fair few people who like real books, and so I can't actually use those services anymore. And I've had people.
We recommend that you do not buy this book since Amazon have deemed it unofficial. So do not go to payhip.com/b/3J18, and definitely do not click the buy now button for the digital copy at $8 Australian. Definitely do not do that.
And definitely do not, if you live in Australia, contact me on Facebook to get a physical copy signed by me, because that would really probably get me in a lot of trouble, and you would probably be jailed as well.
And I definitely won't propose to you that maybe we could sell some copies of that book through our Unshackled merchandise store on our website. I definitely won't suggest that. That is just a bad idea.
Oh, well, you're close to being jailed already, I believe. I think that would really tip you over the edge.
Could you, Steve, could you definitely not give us maybe just a rundown of just the main points that you make in your book?
Yeah, well, I definitely won't say that the whole thing is a scam. I definitely won't tell you that the numbers of people dying are grossly inflated. I definitely won't tell you that 99% of the people who are dying have comorbidities and are generally sick and old anyway. I definitely won't tell you that the average age of death for people supposedly dying of COVID is higher than the life expectancy in each country that they are dying in. And so on and so on. And I definitely won't tell you anything about Bill Gates. And
right, good.
And the main thing I definitely won't tell you about is how bureaucracies work, and how it doesn't take a lot of corrupt people to make really bad things happen when you have this sort of system of government. And that's probably the main thing that I really wouldn't focus on in my book, is just how easy it is to corrupt a bureaucracy which basically already exists to be overly protective and overly incompetent in these sort of matters. So that wouldn't be a rundown of my book at all. And
so have you seen that sort of thing happen in bureaucracies? Are you sort of familiar with how a bureaucracy can be corrupted, like from experience in other places?
Yeah, so I give a little example of my wife, who has a cute little hobby of being a mermaid. She likes to dress up in mermaid tails and, go and amuse kiddies down at the beach and have a swim around and just, escape reality for a while with her friends and take photographs and do lots of creative things. And she couldn't swim in the local swimming pools. It used to be allowed, and then a video popped up on YouTube a few years back of a 7-year-old girl who could barely swim. Her mother stuck her in a mermaid tail, a fabric mermaid tail that she got off the internet. And the girl apparently used to be able to do, without her mermaid tail, used to be able to do somersaults underwater. And so the mother said, go try one. And of course she got stuck halfway up in the pool, and the mother had to rescue her, put the camera down and go over and rescue her. And of course this was all the fault of the mermaid tail. And
wow. But so the mother actually saved the kid, but yeah, okay. I see where it's going,
so the kid didn't die, but the mother blamed the mermaid tail for the fact that she got into trouble. The news was having a slow day. It went around the world, and the very next day, councils across the world, not just Australia, but across the world, banned people, adults, using mermaid tail. Not kids, adults, anybody. Nobody was allowed to use them. And there were a couple of places left, a few free papers left, and a couple of my wife's friends were professional mermaids. That is, they went into Houdini tanks and they went on one of the reality TV shows, Australia's Got Talent or whatever, with Dicko and stuff, and swam in a Houdini tank and did tricks underwater and stuff. And they used a deep pool to do all of their tricks. And that was still being allowed despite the ban for everybody else. But then the Australia Consumer Protection Agency decided that they wanted to find out how to label the products coming into Australia. So they commissioned the Royal Lifesavers Association to do a study on the safety of mermaid tails. They did it in Western Australia. They got 25 kids between the ages of 2 and 12, so 2 years old and 12-year-olds, just 25 of them, and they gave this report to the Australian Consumer ACCC and said, yeah, we don't recommend these tails for people under the age of 7. Yeah, so that's what the report basically said. What did 10 News say that night? Mermaid tails could be dangerous. What happened the next day? The friends who had been practicing for their shows in this pool for the previous 6 years, they were banned the next day. So I then, on their behalf, went to the local council and said, what the fuck? This is nuts. What are you doing? It took 6 months to lift that ban, and they had to go through a whole bureaucratic process so that they could ban it in an instant. But to get it lifted, they basically, the bureaucrats had to go and do a study, and they had to go and try and find things, So if you imagine what it's like just for something as stupid and as simple and as innocent as mermaid tails, and they can do that on that basis, you can imagine how bad it gets when we get, we're all gonna die, coronavirus.
And that 6-month mermaid ban and investigation, that stemmed from a single mother called Karen.
Single mother called Karen, yeah.
But did you know that mermaid tails and mermaids, they've been appropriated now by the transgender movement, because apparently trans children and adults like to be mermaids because they have no genitalia.
Well, there's a few.
First they took our rainbows.
Yeah, now they're taking our mermaids.
Well, you can't be gay anymore. I know Maddie tries to talk about how gay he is in the historical.
Yeah, he's
sense.
happy. He wants to. Yeah, we've got to just reclaim everything.
Well, there's a lot of far left Karens in the mermaid community, actually. Very, very nasty people. And my wife has, after doing lots of nice things for everybody and then sort of getting stabbed in the back by just about all of them last year, she's now sort of doesn't associate with half the people in the groups because they're all about saving the environment. And if you're not against climate change, if you're not fighting for climate change and fighting to remove plastic straws from the ocean, then you can't be a mermaid, you horrible person, you. So yeah, we've had to disassociate ourselves from a lot of that as well, because yeah, there's quite a few. They congregate in fish tanks.
Has the black Ariel yet? Have they made that where she gets caught in plastic?
I love the irony as well. Like, you could basically shut off about 5 or 6 rivers in China and India, and you basically solve 95% of the plastic problem in the ocean. But
Yeah.
you know, it's Western countries that can't use plastic straws anymore.
And then clean up the streets in Haiti, and then that's the other 5%.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, well, basically just ban the use of any plastic in the third world, and you basically solve a huge number of environmental problems.
Have you actually drunk something through a paper straw? It's horrible.
Yes.
You get
Yes.
the taste of paper in your mouth. It's awful.
Yeah. It's you know, I was saying to my dad the other day, because it's insane that, like, here, like, we're in a first world country, but we have to watch how much heating we give ourselves during winter. But otherwise, like the bills will be hundreds, thousands of dollars. When I was a kid, I used to think that things were going to get better. I thought we were all going to have spaceships. I thought we were going to be on the moon by now, other planets in the solar system. Instead, we had this the crazy carbon tax from 10 years ago.
The carbon dioxide tax, the air tax.
Yes. Yeah, the air tax. Yeah, that basically meant that energy companies didn't invest in the power plants. We didn't get new power plants. We've gone from having some of the most reliable, cheapest energy in the world to the point where, like, it's the middle of winter and it's cold in Melbourne, and you've really got to watch how much energy you use. It makes me angry.
Makes me very angry.
Well, this week...
It made me angry enough to write a book about it.
In Victoria, you may have missed it, the controlled demolition of the Hazelwood power station in the Latrobe Valley. All the huge, what do you call them, chimney pipes, they all came down, and that's the end of an era in the Latrobe Valley and a source of local employment there. That's thanks to Daniel Andrews increasing the state tax on brown coal. So it's just what we need right now in Victoria.
Lots of solar panels from China instead. Part of the one belt, one road.
Made from carbon carbon products.
Yes, yes. Especially like. Have you watched Michael Moore's banned video yet? We're talking about.
Well, it's banned
Karen
now.
Censoring.
Yeah, there was 4
Since
seconds.
when did Michael Moore become a right-wing extremist? I love it.
It's brilliant. I think it was great. The only
He's the fattest member of the alt-right.
The only thing about the documentary where they still cling on desperately to a bit of leftism is that they still want to reduce the population. They're still very, very full Malthusian, because obviously now they've found out that solar panels and wind turbines and biofuels can't save them. Therefore, the only thing left is to cull everybody, like they originally planned back in 1969. So,
yes, that infamous book, the Population Bomb, by Paul Urich, which, well, the bomb. It seems...
He really should have translated that into Mandarin, shouldn't he?
It's a real dud of a bomb. It fused and then nothing.
Yeah, like every single prediction wasn't just wrong, but the opposite. So it was, you can't be, you couldn't be more wrong if it was a chimpanzee on a multiple choice test.
Stephen, do you advocate for nuclear power?
Yeah, I don't really mind what power. I'm quite happy with coal, to be honest with you. I just want it just get rid of it being illegal. It shouldn't be illegal. There's nothing wrong with the stuff. The main problem with nuclear power isn't the technology itself. It's all the regulations they put around it to make it expensive. So if they're going to legalize it, they've got to legalize it without influence from Labour, Greens, or the Liberals.
Yeah.
The people in the chat are talking, alluding to the fact that YouTube yesterday removed Planet of the Humans from Michael Moore's YouTube channel because of 4 seconds of copyright infringement. How convenient. I haven't heard any news that it's been restored, but yes, they found a loophole. Susan Karen Wojcicki, who's the CEO of YouTube. I assume that she made the call.
Yeah, well, now that they've set the precedent, Karens have to basically take down everything that's on YouTube now, because every documentary that ever exists uses footage from somewhere. So go Karen.
So many Karens, so little wood.
Yeah. I feel quite. I'm torn between using the word Karen, because I've got a cousin called Karen, and she's quite.
Call her Kazat now. I think that's the Australian slang for Karen.
Well, she's English, so I can't even call her.
Oh,
Kazat.
come on! It'll Australianize her.
Okay, we'll get to emigrate finally. Yeah. Well, she probably should anyway. I mean, the UK is dead now anyway, so the UK is lost.
We're only 10 years behind here.
Bars closed, open borders stickers. They'll get you arrested for putting something factual out into the public domain.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've had borders within Western Australia. How about you guys? Have you been allowed to travel to different parts of Victoria or?
Well, it's just been a strict house arrest. There's never been a kilometre limit on our travel, and our state borders haven't been shut at all. So you can flee to New South Wales if you want.
So you haven't had roadblocks in your state?
No, not like I've heard that happened in WA. Yeah.
Yeah. So I've got a son out in Laverton, which is up past Kalgoorlie, and the grandkids are in Kalgoorlie with his ex-wife, and I was going to go over to Kalgoorlie and just before all this started and pick them up and go and take them to see their dad and have a nice long weekend with the grandkids and stuff. And when I heard that it was going to be banned, I'm like, stuff it, I'm going to go anyway. And then I heard that no, there's actually roadblocks, not only just roadblocks, to Kalgoorlie, but I literally couldn't leave Perth. So I couldn't get down past Mandurah to I couldn't go more than 100 kilometers without finding a roadblock.
Wow.
So yeah, it wasn't just closing the borders internationally. It wasn't just closing the borders between New South Wales and the eastern states and us. It was closing the borders. Literally, I was expecting the local council to contact me next to say I couldn't leave Stirling.
Well, we're expecting the Chinese tanks here in Melbourne any day now.
Well, Mark McGowan, he's a bit of a fan of the Chinese as well. Well, he said we shouldn't upset them too much, and your local business tycoons, Twiggy Forrest and Kerry Stokes, saying, "Hey, let's just not worry about those wet markets and just forgive and forget."
Feel the love, eh?
We've got a question on entropy. I've just also started a poll, which is, will you buy Stephen's book? You can either answer no or no way. So choose which one you feel strongly.
You should really put a third option: arrest the bastard.
I don't know how to make a third option on this. Maddie does. on his entropy, but I can't get it to work. So Senator Slayer has asked, can we have a moment's silence for political prisoner Andy Nolch? This just broke today that I'm not sure if you're aware who Andy Nolch is, Stephen. He was the comedian and Scientology advocate who vandalized Eurydice Dixon, that rape and murder victim in Princess Park in North Melbourne, her memorial by drawing a giant dick on it. He was
I remember, yeah,
$20,000 for that, and placed on a community corrections order. It's come to light that he's breached that twice to go overseas, and now he's also facing new charges of drug importation. So he's been jailed for 5 months. So I'm not sure if I agree that he's a political prisoner if he's done all that.
Well, yeah. Well, I defended his actions of drawing the penis. I saw it as a political act, but yeah, I don't know what's going on with the rest of the stuff. So
certainly back at the time, it was one of the things that I was outraged about, and I went around drawing penises everywhere just to make a point.
Good, yeah.
When I interviewed him on my old Unshackled Waves program, he talked about the police resources that were thrown to find him, and that there were police patrols all around Princess Park where the memorials were. But interestingly, there weren't those same police resources in the vandals outside St. Patrick's Cathedral in Melbourne, with all the pedophile vandalism after he was exonerated by the High Court.
Yes, it's almost like they're happy for certain people to get through.
Still never found those Antifa who attempted to assault Andrew Bolt.
Yeah, they can be decidedly lazy when they want to be. Yeah. Almost like we're living in the most corrupt state in Australia, Tim.
It's one of the worst, that's for sure. With the lockdown, every state is doing something ridiculous. I mean, I mentioned that our state borders are still not shut, but SA, Western Australia, Queensland, Northern Territory, and Tasmania all got their state borders shut.
You go, Dave.
Yes.
Yeah, it's. I think what got me most this year was just I'd sort of been expecting it to continue to happen gradually. You know, when I wrote my climate change book last year, I wrote I was still full of good humor. I wrote a book with jokes to make people laugh, and I thought I had time. You know, I thought I had time on my side, and I thought that this would still happen gradually and bit by bit, and over the next 5 years, you know, people would start to gradually understand what was going on, and maybe, you know, by 2030, with Agenda 2030, closer to that date, things would people would start to wake up. I was just shocked at the speed of which they jumped on this coronavirus thing, and just how fast and how willingly and how easy it was to just absolutely decimate the last bits of freedom that we were clinging on to, and just so completely. I really can't get over how fast it happened.
Now you're really getting to the heart of the matter. It's interesting, when coronavirus started up, I was listening to Stefan Molyneux's videos, and so I was I'll admit I was a coronavirus alarmist. I was predicting mass death. And another person who's been on here, Mark Moncrief, he was disagreeing with me. He was basically saying, look, this is a massive beat up. And I actually had a conversation with him the other day where I sort of looked at my own motivations for sort of being prepared to believe that coronavirus was going to be actually a really big deal. And it's like I sort of was prepared to, I was prepared to believe it was going to be a really big deal for kind of the reason that you're pointing out here as well. Like I can see the trends that are going on. I can see the way that our nation is basically being stolen away from us, and the government is completely against us and is trying to get rid of us and is trying to destroy everything that the nation was built to be in the first place. And so I saw this as like my hope, I guess, was, hey, this is actually going to shake everything up. What I've sort of had to learn the hard way is that like if you want to actually push back against what our government is doing and what globalist governments around the world are doing, it's the hard slog. You know, it's the writing the books, it's fighting the culture war, it's fighting the political war. It's going to be a really, really hard slog, because what's happened now is that they've just used this to ramp everything up. Like it used to be that you mentioned certain races or certain religions and you get banned. Now it's a virus, and
even if you're a medical expert like
yes.
Dr. Dan Erickson, a few people are in the chat complaining about my sound. I'm as close to the microphone as I can, even though he's a medical expert, because YouTube, Susan Karen decided that because it went against WHO health advice, because they've been so good, and also local Californian health guidelines, that it had to be scrubbed from the internet.
Yeah, I mean, you can go back to the 7 points of forgotten the name of the damn thing now. Bill Gates's conference in October of last year, which basically simulated a coronavirus outbreak and what the response should be to a coronavirus outbreak. So this was in October last year, and they came away with 7 points. Let's see if I can find it in the. But one of the things that they that they said was imperative for handling a pandemic. I can't find the quote in there because didn't come prepared. But one of the things they said about handling a pandemic was the importance of getting all media and corporations on board to handle the narratives, and make sure that only official information was getting out there, to make sure that no one was doing things unofficial, which would make it more dangerous, supposedly, and stuff. So yeah, they've really sort of slammed down hard on that, and they've taken it to heart, and that's why I've got banned on Amazon. That's why and rogue doctors can't get a word in. Everything from Amazon, YouTube, Facebook, the whole works. They're all totally Karen'd up, and
we better watch it. Saying Karen will get us banned soon enough, I'm sure. Please continue.
Yeah, it's just so coordinated, and as I've looked into it further, because I've had time on my hands, I go back to 2011 when the Rockefeller Foundation put out a document called Lockstep, and basically again simulating a pandemic and what the best response would be. And the response is, if you can go on and read it, and it just sounds like they are enacting specifically lockstep right now, right across the globe. And it talks about how China would be the example, and how China would get over the pandemic faster. And it talks about how there'll be pushback in Western countries, and how they would overcome this. And so there have been people who've been waiting for a pandemic, real or manufactured, whatever. They've been planning for it, they've been preparing for it. You go into the literature, I put 50 studies on pandemics. And basically the way bureaucracies work is that when a government health official is told to give government advice, they can only get their advice from official sources. And so if you haven't been thinking about a pandemic for the past 10 years, you won't have written any papers on pandemics in the past 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
And so all of the funding for pandemics have been funded by these foundations who have got an interest in having an outcome of a pandemic which furthers their goals. And so they give money and saying, please go and study what the effects would be of locking everybody down during a pandemic. And so they write a study, they publish it, it gets peer reviewed. And then when it comes time 10 years down the track to say, what is your advice? And they go, well, all of the peer reviewed literature, it says this, it says you should lock down. And so that's why they say these things. And the thing is about these people, they don't have to be in on it. This is their job, like the bureaucrats with the mermaid. They don't have to do it. All they know is that their job is to pick official reports, not some rogue doctor with 20 years experience in virology, because they haven't written a report on pandemics. They're just swinging from the hip, they're reacting to it, whereas all the literature that's been written about pandemics, that's what they're allowed to give to the government. And so the government says, well, have you got anything else? They go, no, this is it. There's all saying the same. 97% of experts all agree. You need to do this. And then the government and the cowardly politicians go, well, if all of the experts are all saying this, and I really don't want to face the press and say I'm going against the experts. I'll better lock it down.
I learned the hard way at university that most of the literature written about politics is rubbish. On the pandemic, talking about predicting the pandemic, Devon Stack of Blackpilled did a really interesting review of the movie Contagion, and he compared the movie Contagion to other sort of virus movies, and it's really, really interesting that the movie Contagion just seemed to get lucky on every single aspect of what's actually happened here. It's another one of those really bizarre coincidences that's turned up. The other thing, just sort of talking about what we were talking about at the start of this little segment, David Hilton on the XYZ, he's basically made the argument, and a lot of people have made this argument too, that the lockdowns over the supposed pandemic seem to be a way of covering for the impending financial debt explosion that we're facing anyway.
I think it's their new way, because we've seen the climate alarmist movement. They were very upset when this pandemic began, because their crusade, the general public weren't concerned about it anymore, but they've quickly adapted to be lockdown activists, because both climate alarmism and public health lockdowns, they both have the same effect of destroying the capitalist economy. And of course, with the most clear example of that is Greta Thunberg going from a climate expert to a virologist even before her 18th birthday.
It's amazing, the girl's talents, isn't it?
Would you?
Just one interruption, Tim. Steve, you'll be happy to know my last Facebook ban was for calling Greta Thunberg a retard on Facebook. Yeah.
Well, the full thing that you call her is a communist idiot, retarded bitch. Yes,
thank you, Tim. I keep forgetting the order of the words I use. Yeah,
I call her that every day. This is the problem with getting with being censored everywhere. People don't even know you're worth getting banned on Facebook anymore. They don't even know I exist.
It can be a blessing.
It's I feel jealous. You keep getting banned on Facebook, and I'm not getting any bans.
Well, I'm on my
I'm swearing.
account.
I'm swearing at people every day on Facebook. I'm calling everyone retards.
Just keep mentioning the Rockefellers. I'm sure that'll get you somewhere.
Yeah. What?
Why don't we segue now into Donald Trump? His tweets on opposing mail-in ballots got got fact checked. Not a wool. Twitter put a fact check. I'll bring it up here. Because Trump is opposing states issuing mail-in ballots for the November election so people don't have to be in close proximity to each other at polling booths. And Twitter put this exclamation mark saying "Get the facts about mail-in ballots," which of course I'll go to the next tweet here. Trump said, Twitter is now interfering in the 2020 presidential election. They are saying my statement on mail-in ballots, which will lead to massive corruption and fraud, is incorrect based on fact-checking by fake news, CNN, and the Amazon Washington Post. Yes, because Amazon does now own the Washington Post. That fills everyone with a lot of confidence in the media. Twitter is completely stifling free speech, and I, as president, will not allow it to happen. And
I hope he breaks them up.
Well, he went further, saying Republicans feel that social media platforms totally silence conservative voices. We will strongly regulate or close them down before we can ever allow this to happen. We saw what they attempted to do and failed in 2016. We can't let a more sophisticated version of that.
Well, yeah, it was the Facebook people who said we can't let another Trump event happen or another Trump moment happen.
You know that Zuckerberg, he's come out and said that he disagrees with what Jack Dorsey did. He says that social media should not be the arbiters of truth. And I did love this. The Chaser, we mentioned them a couple of weeks back. They're actually getting back into to find form here. This was their article. Social media should not fact check posts, said child molester Mark Zuckerberg.
Yeah, touche. Yeah. I've got no shame in saying that they were actually one of the inspirations for me to start blabbering on the internet and sharing my opinions. So good on them.
This is what Jack Dorsey, the CEO of Twitter, Karen Dorsey, I should say, he said, fact check, there is someone ultimately accountable for our actions as a company, and that's me. Please leave our employees out of this. We'll continue to point out incorrect or disputed information about elections globally, and we'll admit to and own our mistakes as we make. But funny they haven't got rid of the Twitter accounts advocating for violence against police officers during the Minneapolis race riots.
That's a good segue there, Tim.
But they keep, because they've hidden behind that they're a platform, not a publisher, even though he's conceded there, Jack Dorsey, that yeah, we concede we are a publisher and we do have some liability.
Yeah, I think they're quite happy to hold two opposing opinions at once. That's the thing. Like he'll say that now, but put him up in front of another House committee, and he'll say something different.
He'll just say whatever he needs to say.
Yeah.
Are you on Twitter, Stephen?
I forgot. I actually have been banned from Twitter, and I haven't. Once I got that ban, I didn't go back on. I got on there. I'm really not like a multiple. I think people who multitask on social media, they're too feminine for me. I can only deal with one at a time. I'm a real man, Facebook, I had MySpace, and then eventually I was forced onto Facebook, and I left my MySpace behind. So I thought I went and had to go on Twitter, and I was probably there for about a month before I got banned. And then I was like, well, fuck it then. I'll just stay on Facebook. Yeah. I'll probably go to Gab eventually, but it'll be when I'm banned from Facebook, and then I just can't be bothered to get back on again.
Well, it's been good news this week. Gab is back online after its maintenance, after its server upgrade, and I noticed that in the replies to Trump's tweets, the Gab Twitter account was saying, "Come on over to Gab, President Trump. We've got an account waiting for you, trying to entice him over." I assume that Gab Twitter account is run by Andrew Turlber, the founder and CEO of Gab, who's on Gab. He's done an absolutely amazing job. He's basically rebuilding the internet as what it used to be, a free speech platform.
Tell you what, Gab would explode if Trump went on there, because then everybody would have to go on there.
Yeah,
it'd be pretty epic.
Laura Loomer, she's been banned from pretty much all social networks, even Uber, because she pointed out that some of their drivers in the US had radical Islamic tweets. She's running for Congress in Florida. She's utilizing Gab to help promote and also fund her campaign. She's outraised her Democrat opponent, and her the district that she's running for, I think it's the 23rd, takes in Palm Beach, where Trump's Mar-a-Lago resort is. So she'd be Donald Trump's congresswoman.
Not bad. Women shouldn't hold any kind of political office, but good on her.
She's definitely not a Karen, though.
I'm starting to think maybe Karen is in the eye of the beholder. Like it's, like depending on how you want to paint them, they might, one man's Karen could be another man's Margaret Thatcher. I don't know.
Well, the thing about, you mentioned that we might get banned for using the word Karen, but the twist in it is that a Karen can only be a white woman. That's the thing.
Yeah. That is the interesting thing. Like, because I know that far left papers are saying, the Karen meme is like fully misogynistic and everything like that. But I've also heard it suggested that it's actually a racist thing. Like it's but then again, like there is something wrong with a lot of white women, and we do have to pull them into line. So I can see both sides of that.
Shall we have a look at the peak Karen that was on display at Central Park in New York? And now, Stephen, when I play this, you won't be able to hear it, but our audience will. So I'm sure you've all seen this. This African-American bird watcher told this Karen, Amy Cooper, that she needed to put her dog on a leash, and this is what happened.
Close to me.
Sir, I'm asking you to stop recording me.
Please don't come close to me.
Please take your phone off.
Please don't come close to me.
I'm taking a picture and calling the cops.
Please call the cops. Please call the cops.
I'm going to tell them there's an African-American man threatening my life.
Please tell them whatever you like.
Excuse me?
Look at what she's doing to the dog.
I'm sorry, I'm in the ramble, and there is a man, African-American, he has a bicycle helmet. He is recording me and threatening me and my dog. There is an African-American man, I am in Central Park. He is recording me and threatening myself and my dog. I'm sorry, I can't hear you either. I'm being threatened by a man in the ramble. Please send the cops immediately. I'm in Central Park in the ramble. I don't know.
Thank you.
So this Amy Cooper, it turns out, because I know that the progressive left, they claim that only MAGA hat wearers are racist, but Amy Cooper, she turned out to be a liberal. It looks like Amy Cooper, the white woman in the viral Central Park video, is a liberal. That's important because if I go down here, the man's name was Christian Cooper, the black man, the bird watcher. There is no relation to them. Campaign contribution information with donations to Democrats such as Barack Obama, Pete Buttigieg, and John Kerry, leaked online earlier, appear to suggest that Amy actually identifies as a liberal, and she lost her job at an investment bank as a portfolio manager. She lost her dog, which she was endangering during that call. Her life has been ruined. Is that justified?
So, Tim, what you're saying is that you're asking me to pick between a black guy and a white liberal woman. This is kind of like Ethiopia versus Eritrea all over again. And I really don't know who to care about less.
It's worse than that. It's between a crazy Karen and a bird watcher.
Yes.
But it does prove I guess the retort that Democrats, liberals are the real racists. And I've said this before, that because progressives and liberals, they're always claiming, oh, I'm definitely not racist. And they always accuse who they consider homophobes of being secretly gay. But it seems more the fact that those who are so virulent in their anti-racism are actually secret racists themselves.
Well, the whole idea of the Democrats are the real racist, I always like to point out, like with racism, the word racism is an invention of communists, and the term was used to undermine homogenous white European countries. But like your point does stand. Like the people who obsess over race are the ones who want to are the actual race hustlers. They're the Democrats. They're the ones who see race in everything. And we here on the right, we're just the ones who point out, look, it's normal to be proud of who you are and to identify by your race, and it's normal for white people to want their own country. But yeah, it's the liberals, it's the leftists, it's the Marxists who just turn everything into something about race.
And
yeah,
that
sorry, go on.
Yeah, Steve.
Probably...
you go, Steve.
Oh, you go. Yeah, you go, Steve.
Yeah, I was going to say I was never. It's actually I was saying to Tim before you came in the pre-chat, Dave, that it was you and Maddie that actually turned me into a racist in the first place. So it was. I
think we're calling it Ray Rays now.
Ray Rays. It was
far right extremist white supreme pizza.
I became a white supreme pizza thanks to you guys. I was I'd gone through a journey of being a bit of a lefty myself to being a libertarian, and it was the XYZ that sort of eventually sort of made me only probably in the last 12 months actually really made me go sort of full hard on. I am okay. If you're going to call me a Ray Ray, then fuck it, I'm a Ray Ray.
Yeah,
and actually start accepting the argument that Australia needs to protect its English heritage and genetics and race. And yeah, I can't remember what the point was going to make there. I just wanted to put that in between what we were talking about before.
Thank you for letting me know that, Steve. It's I appreciate hearing that. So yeah, it's nice to know that. If
you go back, like on your Facebook pages for the first episode, you'll see me being a complete and utter tosser to you guys.
Really?
Yeah. I was lucky I didn't get blocked before I changed, to be honest with you.
We went through a very strong libertarian stage. Like we went through the libertarian to nationalist pipeline ourselves. So for a long time, we strongly believed in freedom of speech. So I'm glad to know it worked for a little bit.
You are changing the world, Dave.
Yeah. One activist at a time.
Yeah. One censored nobody at a time. Yeah.
Let's.
But yeah, that. Go on. No, I'm done.
You finish.
No, I forgot what I was going to say in the first place because I was too busy paying homage.
So let's fast forward to this death of a black man at the hands of Minneapolis police, George Floyd. Let's play the footage, which is a bit quite disturbing. It'll be interesting because it's freely available on YouTube, but I just sort of wonder, since I'm playing it on this show, whether YouTube might take action against me. All right, let's play it.
What do you want? I can't breathe. Please, the knee in my dick. I can't breathe shit.
Bro, get up, get in the car, man.
I will.
Get up, get in the car.
I can't move.
I've been waiting the whole time, man. Get up, get in the car.
Mama.
Get up and get in the car right.
I can't.
They gave y'all the
Please.
opportunity to get in, bro. I told you, you can't win.
My knee.
You can't
My neck.
win, man.
I'm through.
I know you a nigga, you
through.
didn't listen.
I'm claustrophobic. My stomach hurts. My neck hurts. Everything hurts. Just water or something. Please. Please. I can't breathe, officer.
Yeah, so that's pretty disturbing footage. And the reason that he was arrested is because at a convenience store, he tried to purchase things with a counterfeit note. George Floyd was a 45-year-old security guard. And it's important to make the point that Minneapolis, which is in Minnesota, has a Democrat mayor. The state has a Democrat governor. And it's also the state where Ilhan Omar, the Somali American congresswoman, is from. Both the Democrat senators from Minnesota are women, including Amy Klobuchar, who ran for president. But of course, this is MAGA country's fault, of course.
Yeah. Just like when there were apparently those two guys wearing the cap in Chicago, like the middle of Chicago, saying this is MAGA country. I'm pretty sure it's Barack Obama country. Yeah.
So those 4 police officers who participated in that, they've all been fired, but they haven't faced charges yet. But what's happened since then, and this is from Andy No's Twitter account, he's documented the rioting all throughout Minneapolis. That looks like something from a movie there. Go down here.
Yo, is this you, bro?
And there's been looting.
Is this you?
And I'm not sure there's more footage
Ladies and
here.
gentlemen, I have never seen anything like this. The building's beginning to collapse. The building is collapsing. The building is...
That's some pretty substantial writing there. And I'll see if there's this one. I'll see if it's on in the Target store here. They're breaking open the self-serve machine.
This is literally the craziest stuff I've ever seen right now. This is Target right now. This is literally the craziest stuff I've ever seen right now. This is Target right now.
And
I think it's just disgusting that they're all ignoring the social distancing laws.
yeah, they should all be issued with $1,600 fines.
That's it. Imagine what would happen if white people responded in this way every time there was black on white violence. The whole country would be torn apart, basically.
I saw Candace Owens post that the black writers they've fallen into the Democrat and media's trap to perpetuate the cycle of racial tensions and conflicts. So the media can constantly discuss it, and the Democrats can try and garner votes from it. Because let's also remember what Joe Biden said recently on that Breakfast Club show.
Do that to black media.
I can't do that to white media and black media because my wife has to go on at 6 o'clock.
Okay.
Oh, I'm in trouble.
Listen, you got to come see us when you come to New York, VP Biden.
I will.
It's a long way until November. We got more questions.
You got more questions, but I tell you, if you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, and you ain't black.
It don't have nothing to do with Trump. It has to do with the fact I want something for my community. I would love to see.
Take a look at my record, man. I extended the voting rights 25 years. I have a record that is second to none. The NAACP has endorsed me every time I've run. I mean, come on. Take a look at the record.
There we go there. So that caps off the week in race relations in the United States, which, remember, they began to deteriorate under the first African-American black president, Barack Obama.
Yeah, funny that, huh? It was, yeah, it's funny that he was the biggest race baiter of them all.
Stephen?
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny, you know, how your perspective changes over this. I mean, I remember back to England and the Brixton riots and the Toxters riots and the race riots that that happened back in England when I was growing up and stuff. And you know, and you know, at the time, you know, I went with the media narrative of you know, what caused it, the poverty, this, that, and the other. But now I look at these things and think this is just one more reason why we should not have a multicultural society.
We've got it's not a question, it's more of a statement, but it is from one of the Uncuckables contributors, Maddie Rosenberg. Zemajed, that the left are the real Ray-Rays. How long until women accept the patriarchy is for their own good and husbands put their wives in their place? Don't worry, Steve. Dave's a fuckwit.
Did you see Monday night? Did you see on Monday night? It was amazing because the ABC, they put out this. I think they were trying to do some advertisement for some comedy show.
Oh yes,
and so,
At Home Together with Ray Martin.
Right. Okay. So that's what it was. And so like they had all these ABC people on there going, look, we know you're we know you're bored and lonely at home. You've got nothing to do, but just whatever you do, don't start a podcast. And there was this line where it's like, we know your mate Dave has some interesting opinions, but don't listen to Dave. Dave's a fuckwit.
Yeah.
It's one of the most amazing things I've ever seen. I loved it. Absolutely loved it.
I got the feeling they made that sketch is because they don't want the competition at this time. They don't want everyone.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, yeah, that was the point. It's like, yeah, okay, you guys are trying to be funny, but like you're making a serious point. Like you're like, okay, don't go out there and challenge the mainstream narrative, or we'll ban you on Facebook and call you a fuckwit. Yeah.
Because you're on at the same time XYZ Live as ABC's Q&A.
Yeah.
I know what I'd rather watch.
Oh God.
Yeah, we're the rivals. Yeah.
I think if I ever got on that show, that would be the day that I got arrested and finally thrown in jail for life. I just couldn't see myself doing anything but turning full Viking on the whole crowd.
Hey! If that guy threw his shoes at John Howard and he didn't get charged or anything.
Yeah, but John Howard's a conservative, you know, a conservative. So you're allowed to throw shoes at him. I think you know, you go on the Q&A, you get put in the stocks for at least a year just for dissenting.
You're also allowed to egg Fraser Anning because he's a Ray.
You can imagine.
But what happened in Perth actually? Some guy threw a yogurt at Lee Sales, but he got charged.
Yeah, because he threw it at the wrong person.
Well, was that you?
Was it me? No, I don't waste food. Yeah, my grandparents, you know, my mother grew up after the Second World War, and I had it drilled into me: you finish what's on your plate, or it gets fried up for breakfast the next morning.
That's it.
Well, there was that was actually where when the first was attempted political egging happened in 2010, when a man attempted to egg Julie Gillard, but it splattered on the revolving door. That was in.
But he got charged.
Yeah, he got charged, and
he
also
got charged.
The pieing of Qantas CEO Ellen Joyce at a.
Oh God, I would love to pie him myself.
A business breakfast.
I mean,
you'd break the no wasting food.
I'm 6'4", all right, and Qantas is now run by a gnome. He's run by a garden gnome, and the seats, they reflect that now. Like you always were like this on a plane, but now the headrest comes up to my shoulders.
Oh wow!
It's you know, it's because Alan Joyce was the one who tested the freaking seats, I'm sure.
He said Alan Joyce with Qantas when they start resuming domestic travel that they're still going to seat people next to each other, because he claims that because you sneeze forwards or cough forwards, that there's the back of the seat in front that'll catch it there. It's not like you're coughing sideways, so he implied.
Well, it'll be the back of my bloody head, won't it? Because my head will be sticking up above the seat. I'm sure they're probably going to be ordering perspex screens like they've got around all of the supermarkets now, and you'll be sitting on your seat with a perspex screen in between you and a snot catcher in front of you.
Do you know what? I've been taking photos of all the perspex screens and all the hazard tape over the chairs, because in 20 years' time, nobody will believe us.
Oh no, they will, because in 20 years' time we'll be walking around in a bubble each, you know.
Yeah. Okay. I'll pay that actually.
Yeah.
I'll pay that.
Yeah.
When you're out at a supermarket or anywhere where you've got to queue up, there's plenty of Karens, and I don't know what the male term for Karen is. Maybe Peter or something like that. If you step,
there are no male Karens. They're all transgender.
If you step slightly into someone's 1.5 meter space, they're like, "Stay the distance. Step away. Step away. Step away."
Yeah. It's why I like the term antisocial distancing. Like I've been acutely aware of catching myself saying like those Globo Homo approved comments, like I won't say the new normal unless it's unless I'm being ironic. I like the terms antisocial distancing and even remote learning. Even that, I hate that. I'm like, nah.
Yeah, it's very. I mean, it's so Orwellian, and it's not funny. In terms of, I looked at you read that book for the first time, and you the phrases that are in there, and you think, oh, I can never get so stupid. They've outdone it.
We've got a super chat on entropy from Svabnek for $50 US. Thank you so much, Svabnek. You're always very generous. I'm not going to buy Stephen's book using a triple VPN and not going to store it on an encrypted stick. Don't ask me where. I'm not going to hide it. That's very good of you, Svabnek. We've provided the web address that you're not meant to go to, so I think we've been pretty clear. Do not buy Stephen's book.
No, if you value your freedom, don't.
All right.
So one more thing I'd like to say. Wouldn't it be fun to be in power as a conservative, as a real proper conservative, and do an investigation into what people invested in companies selling perspex screens and get them on insider trading?
Well, I know that Helen Dalton, the Shooters, Fishers and Farmers Party state MP in New South Wales, she's proposed that MPs should declare their water interest, and she's caught some threats and some complaints over that.
Declare the water interest? What's that over?
Well,
selling of the water rights on the Darling.
Yeah, because the farmers they don't own the water that's on their property anymore.
No, if it lands on the ground, it belongs to the government. It doesn't belong to the farmer.
Yeah, gee.
You can't store it. If you want to put a little rain collector on your house in the wrong area, then that water isn't yours. It belongs to the government, and you could be fined for doing so.
We're simply not a free country anymore. Yeah. Like we used to ask that when we used to use that expression when I was a kid. Someone would be a Karen to you, and you'd just be able to go, "Hey, it's a free country." It's not a free country anymore.
No.
Oh, it's just popped in my head now while we're talking about water rights. Tell us about Tony, the WA potato farmer. Do you know his saga?
I heard there was some current news about him.
But just explain the background of it.
Yeah, so he fought against the. He's one of the customers of my wife's the business my wife works for, and she talks to his wife a fair bit when she's taking orders. So he basically got fined and come down on the government by the potato board because he was growing too many potatoes. so he was growing too many, and that was driving down the price of potatoes for his competitors, and driving other potato growers out of the market. Therefore, he was going to be, and he fought it in court, and I think he won in the end, and basically broke the potato board monopoly, where you couldn't grow more than your quota of potatoes.
Oh wow!
Unless, yeah.
That's basically communist. That's amazing.
And this isn't recent either. This is a couple of decades ago. This is
wow.
Yeah. So this was the protectionism that existed before we had communism imposed on us. So we've never been a free market country, but now we're a totalitarian and also corporatism country now as well. So.
Capitalism has never been tried.
I've just brought up a photo of him on Google.
He's quite a looker, isn't he?
Yeah.
I often thought he was wearing a wig and fake eyebrows.
I know.
It's way he looked. I've seen him around Perth a few times, and that is how he dresses. That is how he walks around.
It looks sort of like a Nick Giannopoulos character.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah.
Hey guys, have you heard my potato joke?
Oh, please tell us.
How many potatoes does it take to kill an Irishman? None. Okay, please continue, Tim.
Well, we've spoken about on our respective shows. First, it was BuzzFeed Australia shutting down. Then it was 10 Daily. They both shut last Friday. Adam Bant, he posted about it was such a loss to media diversity. Obviously, he doesn't see us as part of the media diversity because they don't want diverse opinions and they don't want too much independent thought.
Yeah.
Executed then.
But it was announced today that News Corp Australia, they're going to stop printing more than 100 regional newspapers after the coronavirus shut down gutted advertising revenue. 76 regional mastheads will be online only, and they'll shut another 36 altogether. So the closures would lead to job cuts without saying how many. I just thought about this today. This is how stupid the mainstream media is. They've championed these lockdowns and business shutdowns, but they make most of their money through business advertising. And if you advocate for businesses to be shut down, what do you think is going to happen to your ad revenue?
Yes. You've just basically summed it up as well as I could. Any of us could, Tim. That's it. I guess they can all learn to code. Huh? I had to put that one in there. I've got it. I think I've said it a few times. Like whenever I see that mainstream media journalists have lost their jobs, I feel a keen sense of pride. It's actually one of the reasons why I started doing what I'm doing, because the media are basically traitors to our country, and they need to lose their jobs, all of them.
And no, News Corp is not the far right extremist boogeyman that the people on the left think it is.
Yeah, they're just the other side of the globalist coin. Yeah, other side of the same globalist coin. It's like they've got a racket going. There's a fake right and a fake left, and there's a fake right media and a fake left media.
Kerry Stokes, he's got the stranglehold, it seems, on WA media. He owns the West Australian newspaper and all the local papers there, and of course the local Channel 7 there.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So
I turned off my TV about 6-7 years ago. I haven't bought a newspaper in at least that long. I only hear about what's happening in the mainstream media through others.
You know, I actually turned on the television the other day. I was on there for about maybe a minute, maybe 2 minutes. I flicked through all the channels, and then I remembered why I don't watch television. It was amazing.
You turned it off again, yeah.
Yeah.
There was a great country song years and years ago called 57 Channels and Nothing's On.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Nothing's changed much, huh? Yeah.
Well, we're seeing, what is it, even Foxtel go broke now. It used to be the pay TV monopoly giant, but now there's the cheaper alternatives, Netflix and Stan, which to channel James Fox Higgins are just as satanic and demonic as the rest.
I've been hearing that that Netflix has been deliberately losing money like Amazon did for years.
Oh yeah, it's undertaken so much debt,
and you've got to sort of question. You really, if you ever want to look into one reason why there is a planned globalist financed agenda, it's when you look at these companies that do. I mean, me and the wife, that's all we've actually got to watch when we want to watch something, which is Netflix. But every time we want to watch, you know, just a show, we basically have to brace ourselves for the gay sex, you know, because it's just it's in every show, you know. There's literally nothing you can watch on Netflix that doesn't have some, you know, homosexual kissing going on, or some girl on girl or guy on guy, and it's just like, you know, back when it was sort of first brought on TV, you're like, okay, yeah, whatever, you know, I don't really care what other people do, this and the other, and it's a story, whatever. But when you start seeing it in every single show, and you think, I don't see that many gay people in my life. Over my lifetime, I have not seen that many gay people. My wife's had a gay friend, you know, we've had, you know, a chiropractor's gay, you know, but that's about it.
Happy people.
I know lots of happy people, but that's about it, you know, and the ones that I know don't go around flaunting and snogging in public, and, you know, they don't do all of this stuff. I never thought of myself as you know, I always thought originally of myself as a pretty tolerant and open kind of a guy, until I started finding out what the agenda is. And once I knew what the agenda is, and once I knew what was part of the agenda, then it wasn't because I suddenly became anti-gay or anti-black or anti-anything. It was just, this is what these buggers want. This is what they are trying to impose. I know these are evil. These people are evil. So anything they want, on principle, I'm just going to oppose it. You know, that's how I even became a nationalist. It was like, I know that the reason that they're doing all this immigration is because they want to destroy the countries and have a one world government. Therefore, I oppose it. It doesn't matter whether I have black friends, Chinese friends, gay friends, transgender friends. Doesn't matter on a personal level, because this is what these guys want. I oppose it.
Yes. Yes.
You've reminded me of some other news this week, that the Australian Academy of Science has changed its definition of a woman to anyone who identifies as a woman.
Science. Jeez. So in 2020 there are 72,000 genders. In 2030 there'll only be one recognized gender, that'll be male, because women will be property.
Oh, well, is Karen, we've talked about Karens tonight. Would you consider Karen a, what is that, subgender of female?
Again, also gender doesn't exist. Even the term gender is a social construct. It's sex. You're either male or you're female. Yeah,
you either have some or you don't.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, and the chief scientist Alan Finkel has backed the Academy, arguing he supports an inclusive culture within science.
Oh, execute the bastard. Yeah. Execute the bastard.
There are going to be a lot.
Alan Finkel is one person I would happily see put up against a wall and shot.
He was the one that came up with, instead of a renewable energy target, what did he change it to? It was something slightly different. I can't remember what it was called. the green energy target.
Probably.
It was something different. It wasn't a renewable energy target. Let me look it up because it was the Finkel report.
Yeah, the guy is just so pseudoscience. It's not funny. The crap that he comes out with. I would like to ban all government science. Just abolish it. Abolish all funding for all government science. Full stop. Get rid of it. Get rid of all of the CSIRO.
Oh, it was the clean energy target. That's what it
Clean
was
energy
called.
target. Yeah.
So did they change one word and claim that it was an entirely different scheme?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
It's like how Julia Gillard, she claimed it wasn't a carbon tax, it was a price on carbon.
Yeah. Politicians, gotta love them.
Dave and myself.
Stephen, you see why I was kind of hoping that coronavirus would actually go big, yeah?
Yeah, it's the one thing that I really struggle with. Like, I know Malthusianism is really like a stupid concept, but there are just so many people I want to die.
In Minecraft.
In Minecraft, yeah.
I really would like to have a beach Karen free. Like close the beaches and just let me go on it and just ban all the Karens. Ban all. Yeah, it's I struggle with it. I really do, because the more absurd it gets, the more I just wonder, why are you people alive? Why do I have to be on this planet with you? And it's not because of any eco-friendly thing. It's just because I'm getting to the point where I just don't like people, to the point where and then you go, oh, so and so's died. I go, yay!
Well, it's the thing as well. Like the reason that we've had all these social norms, which have been like we've had our social norms overturned over the last few decades, and we've had who we are like completely overturned. There was a reason that we ran things a certain way. There was a reason why homosexuals were shunned. There was a reason why it was understood that women had their sphere and women had the private sphere and men had the public sphere. That's how you basically keep your people going. That's how you keep a civilization alive and going. That's how you keep an economy. That's how you reproduce and pass on your genes and your culture and all your civilizational knowledge to the next generation. So, yeah, at some stage, it does have to come to a grinding, crashing halt. It doesn't necessarily mean that the whole world will fall apart. It may just mean that civilizations which still run on a traditional way of still run traditionally will actually just be able to walk in, because what we've got going at the moment is not sustainable.
And I hate that word, but you're right.
Yeah. I'm actually using it scientifically.
Every decent word that exists, the left have screwed it up. You can't even use good words anymore because the left have bastardized them.
Yeah. First they came for the rainbows.
Yeah. then they came for my sustainability.
Yeah, that's it.
Oh, you also can't use. We had to change the title of our Australia and New Zealand discussion, so myself and Dewey DeBoer, from Trans Tasman Talk to Trad Tasman Talk, because
I'm very proud of pushing that change, Tim.
Trad.
But you fed into the appropriation of the term trans, because you do know when you stick your card into an ATM and pull money out, it's a trans action.
A trad action.
Okay. I actually don't have a good response to that, Tim. Yeah, I guess I was actually buying into the language of the enemy. Yeah, yeah. I'll pay that.
We've got another. It's not a question; it's another statement, but it is from Maddie Rosenberg. Steve, when are England going to apologise for your abysmal Ashes tour of 2006? It was an insult to Don Bradman, the greatest destroyer of Pommy pacemen in history. # the Australian Empire.
All I can say is I got my citizenship and I now identify as an Australian.
Are you one of those expats who just supports the winners? So say if England was smashing Australia in the cricket by some miracle, you'd go back to supporting England?
No, well, first of all, I'm not really a sort of a watching sports personally. I used to like playing it, but I never really enjoyed watching it. I occasionally watch the Ashes, but since I've got here, I've supported Australia.
Good work.
I left England when I was 20, and when I was a kid, I also spent a year in New Zealand when I was between 6 and 7. So I didn't really sort of feel. It's probably why I've struggled so hard to become a nationalist, is because I travelled around so much and didn't really feel that I belonged to any nation. But obviously, my accent is so damn British, it's not funny. Yeah, so when I got here, it felt actually more natural to be in Australia than it did to be in England, to be honest with you. And I've felt much more at home in this country than I ever felt back in England.
Have you been back to England recently?
No, I've not been back since I left in 1999 was the last time I was there. I've not been back. My son went over there. My mum goes over there occasionally. I've got lots of friends over there, and they come and visit, and they tell me how bad it is. And yeah, it was bad when I left. It was, it was bad when I was growing up. To be honest with you, I was sort of insulated. I lived in a little village which was all white, and it was very, very nice. But you didn't go into the inner city, where all the problem was. I remember playing rugby against the inner city schools, and after one match where we thrashed this. The rugby team from an inner city school, they all came and threw milk bottles at the minivan as we were driving away. So yeah, and I lived in the inner city of Nottingham, and then I went to live in the inner city of Birmingham, and I was just down from where all of the Indian and Pakistani community were, and it was you could already see in Birmingham that was being taken over. And that was back in the late 80s. And when I went back, in 1999 for a few months, you could just see that England wasn't England anymore. Yeah.
I was there in 2017, and I didn't see a great deal, but I was in London. And the thing that shocked me, because when I went to London, I expected to see lots of Muslims walking around. I actually did not see many Muslims when I was in London, but I still only saw 50% English people there. That's what I found crazy. It was as multicultural as Melbourne, and I hadn't even gone into the places that had been taken over.
Even when
well, that's it. I mean, London itself isn't Muslim. It's just that there are places like Luton that are.
Yes.
And there's that stupid little English village, beautiful little English village with all of the English countryside and churches and everything else that is now, I don't even remember the name of it, but it's like 95% Muslim. It's just completely, totally taken over.
Wow.
And there are people, there's like a mass crowd doing the old Islamic prayer there and everything. So yeah, and that's the thing, that people congregate near their own, and Muslims are no different to anybody else. It's like years later, that I realized, like, for example, I lived in Geneva for about 6 months, and there was lots of English people there, and I congregated around the English people because learning French was hard. It's much easier to stay with English people. And when I went to Germany, there was no English people around, and I felt really out of place for ages and ages and ages. And it took me about 2 years before I could really feel sort of comfortable in the conversation, but I never felt at home. And when I remember, when I went to the Netherlands, and everyone speaks English in the Netherlands, but I still congregated around the English people, even though I became fluent in Dutch. And it wasn't really until I came over to Australia and was suddenly back in my own language again, around people who are all the same as me. Even just that small difference between English and German, or English and Dutch, or English and French, it's huge. And so I can't imagine like anybody coming over from a completely different culture. Pauline Hansel says they don't assimilate. Well, of course they're not going to assimilate. No one's going to assimilate if you come over and there's tons of people around you who are all from the place you left. Didn't happen with me, you know, so why should it happen with anybody else?
And of course, the most outrageous aspect of forced multiculturalism in the UK has been the cover-ups and continued suppression of the grooming gang that were allowed to run rampant in the UK. Because at least in Australia, when something like that happens, it's reported on and the outrage is not suppressed. It's a whole new level of sinister Soviet suppression there.
Oh, it's terrible. I mean, just the fact that you get even, you know, the poor Scottish guy who he had his little pug doing his little Nazi salute, getting getting a criminal conviction. You know, it's nuts. You know, and the laws have got worse since that incident happened. You know, now that they've got the coronavirus emergency to hide behind, it's you know, and it's, you get a police state when there is tension between groups, and if you deliberately make lots and lots of different groups, then you have lots and lots of excuses to keep passing laws to keep everybody in line.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Diversity plus proximity equals conflict and police state. Yeah.
One of the local patriot activists here, Gary Hume, he's also a English expat as well, and I interviewed him on my Wilms Front show late last year and said similar things to what you've said, Stephen. Somebody in the chat alerted me to the fact that the word pride has been appropriated by the left as well, because I remember when I told somebody I was going to the TBC Pride March, they thought it was some alphabet rally, which was nothing of the sort. It's a Aussie Pride March.
No, I don't believe you. You're gay.
But while we're back to Victoria, myself and Dave, we've already discussed that Victoria is the snitch state of Australia, and that they had to call in the Defence Force to take in calls to the snitch lines. But we're also, our Victoria Police Force issued the most fines. Ahead on penalties, Victoria leads nation on COVID-19 lockdown fines. Victorians have been fined for breaking coronavirus rules almost triple the rate of any other state or territory, with almost 6,000 people receiving 1,652 penalties since COVID-19 restrictions were imposed. Information obtained by The Age. Go through there. That's what the infringement notice looks like. So it's the estimation of the total fines is 8 million. Civil rights lawyers say the disparity in the numbers could mean Victoria has been over-policed during the lockdown period. No shit.
No, surely not. Surely not.
Victoria.
So what you're saying is Victoria's reached peak Karen.
The Karen line.
Yeah.
Yeah. Victoria Police Deputy Commissioner Shane Patton said the high numbers were probably due to the fact Victoria had taken a more hardline approach to enforcement than other states. So he admits it. Yeah. And this is the graph here. So you can see Victoria 5,957, Queensland second with 2,069, New South Wales 1,290, SA 271, WA only 107, NT 50. Tasmania,
even with the roadblocks.
Yeah. Tasmania 0, ACT 0.
So what they're telling you... Sorry.
The thing is with the roadblocks and WA, it was very, very difficult to get a fine in WA because you couldn't actually physically move to go in a place where you weren't supposed to go.
I'll keep going.
That's the thing. Like that's builds on what I was going to say. Like what that's telling us, it's not just the government; it's the people here in Victoria.
Yeah,
it's the kind of people here in Victoria. It's the kind of people who vote for Daniel Andrews.
About 337 of Victoria's fines have been withdrawn. That many, and there have been more than 400 requests for reviews. Just over 2% of the $1,652 fines have been paid. Well, if you pay, you're stupid. Victorian Equal Opportunity and Human Rights Commissioner Kirsten Hilton said police response had improved since the heavy-handed enforcement scene when fines began to be issued at the end of March. And of course, we're reminded of the police when they fined a learner driver and a couple who posted old travel pictures on social media, because we still don't know whether all these, this is why I say don't pay, because we still don't know whether these fines will hold up in court, whether they were actually legally issued, because of course the courts are clogged at the moment. But we've seen the UK's lockdown laws begin to unravel in the legal process as well. So it could turn out that this entire, a lot of their lockdowns were unlawful.
Does it matter? Yeah. Does it matter what's lawful anymore? It's, you know, some people will fight it, and hopefully they will, you know, get the thing lifted against them. But I expect anybody who's paid it is stuffed.
In New Zealand, in response to legal challenges to the lockdown provisions, Jacinta Ardern, she just decided to legalize fascism through her own version of an enabling act, which would give her health officials and the police the power to shut down any social gathering on public health grounds. So as long as it's passed through the parliament, democratic fascism seems to be okay.
I'm just thinking of that video that Way of the World shared, where the police officers in England broke down this guy's door.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah. I love the fact that he was actually swearing at them and they actually left. At least he can still do that. It was quite amazing.
You know, they left, but they didn't fix his door.
Yeah,
yeah.
Well,
yeah. So, yeah, okay. We've realised there wasn't a disturbance going on, and you are here on your own. Sorry. Cheerio. Better luck next time.
It's the sort of thing that you would expect from a plot from Monty Python from 40 years ago. It's the sort of thing they would have come up with, and it's like, oh, you know, maybe it's just a little bit too far-fetched, guys. You know?
Well, whoever broke Maddie's door, they haven't fixed it yet either.
I know nothing. I know nothing.
I was chatting with the Thanos, the guy who was arrested in Melbourne on another pod thing the other day, and I said to him that I watched the video of him being arrested, and it literally reminded me of the Monty Python's Life of Brian scene where the Roman soldiers they chomp into the room to search it, and they speeded up the footage so that they all sort of go like that, and that was just what it looked like. It was just like they came like a Roman legion and just carried him off. You know, it was gone. It was
wow.
And I said it just reminded me. It was like they'd been watching Monty Python the day before the protest, and they decided to live out their fantasy on the streets of Melbourne. It was quite bizarre.
Well, there's another...
and they didn't even arrest him in the end. They just basically carried him off when he was about to.
There's another, well, not anti-lockdown, but pro-freedom, pro-truth rally happening in Melbourne on Saturday. I said on Wilmsfront last night. It was Sunday. It's Saturday midday at the Royal Botanical Gardens, and Thanos in his 99% Unite Facebook group today. Victoria Police came to visit his house, and they didn't issue him with a legal document. It was an information document from the Victorian government saying if you can stay home, you must stay home to protect from COVID-19. Because they asked him, "Oh, are you planning to attend the protest?" And he said correctly, "I'm not one of the organisers. I might go."
Yeah, it's it just becomes so far. I'm amazed as to how many Karens are left looking at there's so many pictures of police cuddling up to people and cuddling up to themselves, and just, you know, I really think Netflix should come down and film the police having a gay sex scene. I really do, because they're so close to each other all the time, and yet supposedly they are there to stop protests because we're all getting too close to one another and social distancing, and this is going to stop the spread of coronavirus. If 20 police come and descend on one guy, it's such a farce, and yet people are still buying into the narrative that you can't congregate because you will spread coronavirus. It's such a farce.
You know, when XYZ started off, we actually I personally used to write a lot of satire articles. But then we sort of let the satire go a little bit because we wanted to sort of, you know, even though we were quite outrageous, we wanted to sort of talk about serious news. But it's interesting, like there are two guys who've been writing satire articles for us again. And I've been putting them up. It seems a pretty good time to do it because Clown World has just gone,
You know, you keep fooling me with the satire. I'm tempted to report it to Facebook.
Well, how do you know
malicious
anymore?
satire.
How do you know anymore?
Yeah, my definition of satire actually used to be something that will be true in 2 months' time. But my new definition of satire is something that you've just come up with as a possibly funny idea, but then when you Google it and just to make sure that it hasn't actually happened yet, it's actually happened.
It happened, yeah.
Because a few months ago, I was actually thinking about the lyrics of Katy Perry's "I Kissed a Girl" from like 15 years ago or whenever it was, and I was thinking about it. And I'm like, oh, you know, she's got this line about, oh, I hope my boyfriend don't mind it. And I was thinking, you know, like things have moved on from there. Like I could write a satire article saying that she now disavows her old song, saying it was still like sort of heterocentric or whatever. Yeah, and so I was about to, I was actually about to write
because she's claiming it's not normal.
Yeah, that's the thing. And so I was about to write this article about it, and then I was like, hang on. So I Googled it, and she's actually disavowed her old song. She's actually said, oh, I would have written some of the lyrics differently now. So yeah, you can't actually keep up with satire. It's already happened.
So I just want to do the New World Order, Katy Perry. Greta Thunberg.
Yeah, there's this piece that we put up today where there's this guy who's he's isolated himself in a Bunnings for the last 6 weeks because magically, like, there's some protection if you go into a Bunnings. You're allowed to go into a Bunnings and you won't catch coronavirus. Yeah, he hasn't wanted to go outside the Bunnings. Yeah,
there hasn't been any outbreaks at construction sites or golf courses.
Yeah, that's it.
You can't go to the golf unless you're Daniel Andrews, can you?
Oh, you can now. You're allowed to go golfing, hunting, fishing, and soon you'll be allowed to go camping again.
No, not camping. Surely not. That's too dangerous.
Going back to the UK for a moment, you're mentioning the hypocritical police officers. How about, that Scottish health officer, Neil Ferguson, flouted his own directives to visit his mistress, and now there's the scandal of Boris Johnson's closest advisor, Dominic Cummings, travelling 250 kilometres to see his parents when his wife had coronavirus symptoms.
What always annoys me when these sort of hypocrisies are exposed is that the outrage is never that we are locked down. The outrage is always that they didn't follow the rule.
Yes, it's not a problem with the lockdown. It's
a problem with the hypocrisy of the person who made the rule, not the rule that they made. I mean, Neil Ferguson. I mean, he is basically the one who was responsible for our lockdowns as well, and the ones in America, because it's basically his Imperial College of London modelling that every government around the world has used to justify the thing. And when we're hearing now about the second wave of the coronavirus, Well, that's in his report as well. So the Imperial College of London says that we are not going to have one lockdown. We are going to have a lockdown. The curve will be flattened. They will let us all out again, and then the coronavirus will come back, and then we will lock us down again. And so they're already conditioning us for the second lockdown. And the timing of it, so far, it's going to Ferguson's plan, even though he's been exposed as a fraud, even though every single, I mean, you think Paul Ehrlich's predictions were bad. You know, back in the bird flu, he was predicting 200 million people would die from the bird flu. 197 did. All right. So that's his track record. And you can go back through every single pandemic of the last 20 years. Ferguson and his team at the Imperial College of London have come out and said, you need to do this, that, and the other, or everyone's going to die. The mad cow disease, where millions, you know, of cattle were slaughtered and farmers were ruined. That's Neil Ferguson. That's that bastard again. And yet we are still listening to Neil Ferguson. We are still worldwide now, not just in Britain now, but we're worldwide. We're acting on this bugger's advice. Yeah. And the Imperial College of London's thing, even though Sweden has already discredited it and shown that it's all bunk, they are still pushing ahead with it. And so when you hear on, you know, about the second wave, it's just like they started off at the beginning with random disclosure. Oh, we just need to flatten the curve for a couple of weeks because the coronavirus is going to last for, you know, there's an incubation period of a couple of weeks. So we'll lock us down for a couple of weeks, get rid of all of those, find out where those people are hiding who have secretly got coronavirus and not showing us the effects yet. And then once the lockdown was there, they started saying, well, you know, it might last a little bit longer. We'll just do to be safe and blah, blah, blah. They always planned it. It was there. It's written in the modeling. It's just that the politicians didn't want to tell everybody up front. So they're telling us just before they do the next bit and just before they do the next bit. So right now they're conditioning us for phase 2 and, you know, it coming back, and whether it does or not, and whether it'll be real or not when it comes back, but that's what we're being prepped for.
The Karen College of London.
The Karen College of London.
Okay.
Because there will be a new strand of lots of different viruses. And this is the scary thing: is this going to be the precedent now that it's just going to be, oh, there's this disease we don't know about, let's shut everything down again, when we can't afford economically for our way of life and standard of our living to shut down again.
Yes.
Here's the other thing though as well. Like I don't go back on this. Personally, I've actually loved the lockdown. For me,
you can stay locked down. This is what I say. You can stay locked down, but don't keep us locked down. That's what I say.
I think a lot of people. I think a lot of people are going to realize that they can work from home and they don't need to spend 2 or 3 hours traveling every day into the CBD of a city that's too big and too crowded. Yeah, like I've really enjoyed being able to save time traveling and save money on petrol. And I've been able to teach from home quite effectively. So I personally, I've actually I've thrived in it. I've spent more time playing piano. So I think there'll be a lot of people who will live their lives differently after the lockdown as well. And the other thing as well, like I don't necessarily want to go back to normal, because normal is like the government continuing to sell us out.
You'll be part of the new normal. You already are. You were telling me all of this, my skin was just crawling, you know.
Well, we know the one thing that the governments were upset about was that well, not in the case of the UK, but closing the borders to international travel. And there was already talk in Australia about letting in the foreign students again, having the universities rake in the foreign student money again.
Yeah, they've got to look after their globalist mates, don't they? They know where the money comes into this country. They know how. and they've chased it all. They've chased out our industry with regulation and unions and environmental regulations. They've got to keep the immigration Ponzi scheme going. They've got to keep the back door to citizenship for all the Chinese students going. They know that if they don't get the Chinese students coming in, the university sector is going to have to find another way to make its money.
Yeah, well, they're playing. It's how do you get China to take over? That China doesn't like winning wars with weapons. They like the Sun Tzu way. Yeah. They like just encroaching on territory and then putting their citizens in, and then all of a sudden we'll wake up one day and every member of parliament is a Chinaman.
Mm-hmm.
We had Dave Lee on last week's Uncuckables to talk about that exact strategy.
Yeah, well, it's so evident, isn't it? I mean, it's just so blatant now. It's
does Perth have a Chinatown?
No. So I've been saying that every right-wing nationalist patriot should basically come over to WA, and we should do to WA what multiculturalism has done to Melbourne. You know, you just take it over, just take it back. Just all of the Anglo-Saxon people in Australia with a bit of patriotism in them should move over to WA, because there's only 2 million people here. It's the one place left where we've still got a chance. We've got a nice big desert in between us and Melbourne. So you should all move over here, and we can push out Mark McGowan and the Greenies.
Well, it's already home to some white refugees from South Africa.
Yeah, South Africa's been there's been a fair bit of there's been a South African community in Perth for a long time now, ever since the apartheid ended, and people from Rhodesia as well came over. So yeah, there's we have a bit of multiculturalism in Perth, but it's a lot more European multiculturalism.
So basically, you're proposing WA to accept refugees, albeit from
Melbourne. Yeah, white Melbourne refugees. I think they should come over. And then we should do to WA what African gangs have done to Melbourne, and what Muslims have done to Sydney. Come in, take over, basically mass immigrate into a suburb at a time, and so nobody but white people want to live there.
And after that, after we've done that migration, then mortar the Nullarbor, mortar the highway across the Nullarbor, and don't let anybody else in. Build a wall.
Well, you just have to put a few dead kangaroos in there, and you're done. It's not. It doesn't have to be expensive.
Between them and the Emu Army, you should be.
You just remove the roadhouse, and that's it. The problem solved. I mean,
so true.
I don't think it would be economical to build a wall, because across the WA border, the land border, because it's such a I don't know how many kilometers this is, but it's a lot. But
we'd make Victoria pay for it.
But there's only a certain amount of roads going into WA, so the only way to sneak in then, if there wasn't a wall, was to cross the desert. What would you call people sneaking in there? Dustbacks.
Well, I think that it should probably be the test that if you want to be a refugee, if you are a white refugee fleeing Melbourne, we want strong men coming over. We don't want weaklings. We don't want we don't want half men, feminist men, weak men. We want strong men. So you basically need to cross the Nullarbor. We'll remove the roadhouse. If you make it, welcome.
So you'd
let
have
the strong survive.
A citizenship test.
A citizenship test straight away.
That's a citizenship test. Yeah.
Well, I think you've made a nice sales pitch for the Commonwealth or Republic of West Australia, which it's always been a dream of Westerners, but it's never been fully realized.
Well, they voted on it, and they back in 1938 was it, where they actually voted to leave?
In the 30s, but
in the 30s, and then it was just ignored and carried on. But
you voted the wrong way back in the 30s, because that's the thing. If you don't vote the right way, you just ignore it.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, Perth's a beautiful place. It's got the best beaches in the world, bar none. And I've been around the rest of Australia, and I've been over to the Caribbean, and it's a glorious place, and it could be a wonderful utopia for the few remaining Europeans that still have children.
Well, we might end on that note now. It's coming up to 2 hours now that we've been on air. So thank you, Stephen, for coming on. I think you passed the Uncuckables test.
Thank you for having me.
I don't think we've ever had a guest or I shouldn't say guest, a new contributor who's failed.
There's a strong selection process in that as well, is there?
Oh well, you never know if somebody is going to cuck mid-show and say disavow.
Yeah. I'm already without a job, so there's very, very little left they can do to me.
And of course, I'll be back tomorrow night, 6 p.m. Melbourne time for Trad Tasman Talk. Still new content on the unshackled.net. That's where you can see the Unshackled Productions archive, and also our news, essays, and our new history section, which is being spearheaded by Australian Meditations, Australian History essays. Published another one today on Sir Weary Dunlop.
Good on him.
And the XYZ, that's your cue to.
Right, yeah. We just put up an article every morning. Just come along and watch. We've got some, David Hilton, Adam Piggott, Mark Moncrief, Maddie's Modern Life. They've been writing some really, really good stuff. And there's a number of really good writers who are also putting some really good things in. We've got this guy called The Golem, who's made some really, really interesting comments about Australian nationalism. There's a guy called Mike Crusade, who I quite like as well. One of the best names that I've seen, one of the best pseudonyms. Come check out our satire as well. It's a lot of fun at the moment.
Fake news, you mean, not satire. Fake news.
Yeah, it's hilarious. When I used to write them, like I would get messages from lefties in Facebook saying, this article seems misleading. Can you please take it down? It's like, I told you it was satire.
I hope you apologized.
You haven't got any further announcement to make at this time?
Not just yet. I think we'll make that announcement on Monday. We've got some big news. We'll announce it on Monday.
And of course, nobody should follow Stephen at all. So if they're trying to avoid you, Stephen, where should they avoid?
They should avoid looking me up on Facebook. And they're probably quite successful at avoiding me as well, because I've no idea how to tell you what the page number or where to find me. But I've also got a page that they should avoid, which is Confessions of a Climate Change Denier, which is the page that from there they will not be able to find my regular page, because I don't use that very much. I tend not to want to repeat myself when I'm on my page. I know that's supposed to be the main thing about pushing back against propaganda, is to create some of your own, but I find when I've written some facts down, there they are. And so my climate change page has sort of sat there for about 3 years now, with very, very little happening on it, because once you know, you know.
Yeah, that's it.
All right.
You're saying the science is settled. Yeah. Okay.
All right. Good night, everybody. Thanks for watching, and of course, we'll be back same time next week, YouTube and DLive. Thank you, everyone, for watching, and thank you again, Savnak, for the super chat.
And thank you very much, Stephen. Been a lot of fun.
Thanks for having me. Thanks, mate.